So we're often asked the question of why are we so focused on the employee life cycle and really that notion of kind of hire to retire. One of the reasons is that we certainly are in a situation where we have far more jobs and people we need than we have people to fill those. And even if we think about things like automation and everybody talks about how the robots are coming, we certainly are having a situation where we really need to think about what experiences are we giving our employees, and particularly if they're our top talent, how are we going to be able to retain that talent for the times that we need them? And so many people are thinking about each discrete stage of an employee's life cycle in terms of an opportunity to engage that employee, to retain that employee, to motivate that employee, to develop that employee. So we've really come to more sophisticated viewpoints and thinking about our human assets. Oftentimes I would say we've historically thought about them as that a discrete asset, not necessarily an asset over time that could appreciate in value, not necessarily depreciate like we think about many assets in our organizations. One real advantage of this integrated perspective at the different stages of an employee's life cycle with an organization is it really unlocks some unique opportunities from an analytics perspective. So for example, we can understand how onboarding experience may be related to length of employment or volunteer. The question that we need to think about is what form of competitive advantage does an employee experience give to us? If we think about the notion of competitive advantage, it means that you have something that's hard to imitate, cannot be quickly imitated, or really nobody else possesses it. If we think about kind of classic ideas of what is a competitive advantage. And when we think about organizations today, really culture, the climate of the organization, the experience that employees have while they work for you, or even before they work for you during the kind of recruitment hiring process is really one thing that cannot be easily imitated. We can pick up Harvard Business Review or the New York Times or any business periodical, and they're full of stories of organizations that have these incredible experiences. I think Zappos is the one that many come to mind for many of us, that they are known for creating these legendary employee experiences. And that's why it is an employer of choice for many individuals. And so this is why we really think about it as a competitive advantage, and that we're certainly in a situation where, again, we're at a war for talent. Pay is not really a differentiator. Organizations can't really afford in today's environment to pay exceptionally above average wages to employees. So therefore, we need to think about other ways on a day-to-day basis that create something that's different, and that's the experience. If we create positive experiences through our employees at each stage of their life cycle, we're more likely to retain them, to help them elevate to their maximal performance, as well as help attract new individuals to the organization as we replace those who move on to other opportunities or retire. Managers oftentimes, when we talk about employee experience, say, I just don't have the time. I'm being asked to do 12 jobs in a single day, and I don't have the time or resources. And what we often will say to those managers is maybe take a step back and say, what actually is your job? Your job is not to push paper or respond to emails. It is to be a coach, a facilitator, a developer, and somebody who really is the disseminator of the culture and experience of your organization. And when we really look at the best of the best managers, one thing I think you'll find that all of them have in common is the employee experience is what they see as one of the critical functions of their role. They spend time every day ensuring that they connect with their employees are connected to the mission of the organization. We have the good fortune of working with Chester and Adrian of CultureWorks, and one of the things that they certainly talk a lot about is how managers help create alignment. Really good managers create alignment between the mission and values of the organization and the day-to-day experiences of their employees. And I would say that's probably, and I think they would agree with me, one of the most critical functions that any manager must do. Because when you do that, I think you find that you don't have 12 jobs to do because you have a higher functioning team that gets more done. They stick around longer. They develop themselves to a greater degree, that many of the things that are obstacles, if you invest your time wisely, I think tend to disappear. So the question is, what really are analytics and how can managers use them on a day-to-day basis? I would say that probably almost every employee does some form of analytics. We work with information, we synthesize that information, whether we do that very qualitatively or in a much more statistical and quantitative sense to gather insights that help us understand how we're supposed to do our job effectively, how we position ourselves in the marketplace, and how we meet the needs of the organization. I would say all of us do that. Whether you are doing, I think, video editing and you're looking at pixels and information around pixels on a screen, to your head of human capital and you're looking at your workforce plans or your talent reviews or any sort of more quantitative data. So all of us in many ways are doing this. The question is can we take, when we think about analytics kind of in the more traditional term, certainly what we're talking about is statistics and gathering insights from statistical analysis. Now, there certainly are many managers who can do statistical analysis, but probably don't have the time. So the question is how can we offer products and solutions to managers that help them gather the insights they need about their human capital and their teams in order to make strategic decisions about how to create positive experiences. So, for example, most organizations have an employee opinion survey. And we work with Jack Wiley and have the RESPECT framework. And so let's say we find that employees feel from a RESPECT survey that they're not getting exciting work. The work is not exciting, it's not fulfilling, it's not challenging. Data from that could be linked to, well, what does that ultimately predict? Does that predict disengagement? Does that predict turnover? And so let's say we find that for a given manager, their scores on the exciting work factor tend to decrease. That means we have a potential risk of some human capital loss and we need to intervene right away. So certainly analytics, not all of us will be doing this every day. Kind of the big data, predictive analytics sort of sense, but all of us are consumers of analytics on a daily basis and use it to better manage our human capital.